I think we have some questions.
We do. Bang.
All right.
Mary, you did a great job. Thank you for collecting
Yeah,
those.
thank you.
We had a question also, wanted to make sure. Dan is asking about templates that exist. You can find those in the library, and I can just come back here and you can see we have template libraries right here of everything pre-captured. Lots and lots of them for you to go through. Saves you time capturing stuff or making ones on your own. But you can also make and publish templates on your own. So we do have some right here right now that we've already pre-made. So, and I'll have Mary drop the link for our template library website as well, so you can reference that. All right. Let me jump back into Canvas so we can see.
I'll say a broad, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us, because we're getting a ton of thank yous and the things.
Oh,
so that's feedback is really wonderful to know if this is helpful and that it resonates.
All right, so where should we start? I'm gonna see, maybe down here, remote brainstorming and collaboration. Mark, you have a question. What do you think about brainstorming as an individual first and then coming together as a group? Has it always produced better results for teams? If this is a desire, would a request be sent as a pre-assignment into the work session to put all the individual thoughts together? So let's talk about how do we get input from teams during remote sessions?
Yeah, it's a really valuable question. In general, I think people, if you have the right team culture and everyone understands the rules of a really good brainstorm, it can be really useful. But most brainstorms run into challenges because you switch the mode from being generative about lots of possibility and you jump immediately into that'll never work and naysaying. And so you get this tension in the meeting or in the team discussion early on that just kind of kills it. The other thing is that you generate things, but then you never evaluate them, right? You have all these ideas, but then you don't really have a meaningful way to sort through them and evaluate them. So the first thing that I'd mention is, as a Luma instructor, we have a methodology called Creative Matrix, which is kind of brainstorming on steroids. The interesting thing about it is it's time boxed very rigidly. Like you take 10 minutes and you set up basically a grid that is driven by columns that really focus on customer needs, right? So all of Luma's methodologies are there and part of their kit because they're human-centered, they're easy to learn, they're easy to teach, and they get results and they're human-centered. So you basically have a brainstorm that's in a grid, and at the intersections of these grids you have maybe challenge statements, or maybe you have something points along a customer journey, and then you have these certain kind of provocative enablers down the side. But what you do is at these intersections, you're generating ideas that become focused in terms of a particular need of the customer, right? So it's not just some blue sky amorphous kind of thing. You're actually generating ideas that are in line to actual customer needs. And then you'd pair that with some type of, dot voting or importance difficulty matrix or something so that you can understand and take some of those ideas and then actually turn them into a prototype or flush them out a little bit as a concept poster or something. So brainstorming is not bad, but it needs some type of structure to be successful. And certainly some type of time boxing. Working quietly, having people like do their own little brainstorm and then doing a share out, I think is an effective way. Be aware that people on average can generate anywhere from 1 to 3 notes per minute. So as a facilitator, it's really up to you. The longer you let them go, the more ideas you're likely to have from each individual, and then just multiply by the number of individuals. So if you let them generate for 1 minute and you've got 5, you'll probably have 15 things to sort or discuss. That's not too unmanageable. But if you let them go for 10 minutes and each person individually generates that many more notes, and then you've got so many people, then you kind of get overwhelmed and the meeting gets bogged down in a way that's not useful. So it's probably more than anyone wanted to know on brainstorming, but I'm kind of passionate about
No, that was a
exercises.
huge question that came up beforehand. And I also wanted to make sure I highlight the fact that if you do a brainstorm using Mural, you can also do a voting session afterwards, which you mentioned. So in Mural, we have a facilitator superpower and we have a couple of them, a timer, the voting, and you can start a voting session to help people kind of, as Mark mentioned, think about lots of ideas, but then focus and start to think of a conversation of how do we take it from lots of concepts and narrow it down.
There you go. Like, for example, I know I'll just start the timer here so we have a collective sense up there in the top of what will bring us to the top of the hour. So just put about,
Thank you.
You bet. Let's use the tools we have.
Yes. Who would have thought? There were a lot of questions around, I'm going to go up here. Culture and social dynamics. So I think a lot of people are trying to think about how do we stay, and this will be covered in our webinar 2 a little bit as well. So definitely see the second webinar for this, but how do we keep people connected and make sure that they feel, and a couple of them here, teaching them to be comfortable, making sure they have psychological safety, and also they're just not overwhelmed by a lot of tools. So those are a couple of things to unpack. But
you bet. Well, why don't I'll take notes and let's hear your thoughts, and then
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we keep people engaged day to day? I think I mentioned a lot of things like using channels on Slack to keep people connected. For example, we do a fun fact every Friday for the team to get to know one another outside of work meetings. And then you can also use Zoom meetings as a way to catch up. Like my teammate Alicia and we have tea time a couple of times a week where we'll just want to catch up for 15 minutes and staying honest to that, to connect with one another. So it's important to be mindful to schedule meetings that aren't work related so that you do that. I want to make sure I also answer about helping people be comfortable. Psychological safety is a huge part of this work. So I think that, and I was in a session with Daniel Stillman, who did a wonderful job, is make people aware and okay that we're all experimenting right now. And if you're hosting a meeting where people are online, there's going to be a hiccup. And so if you feel like we're going to have a hiccup, I mean, there are ways to reduce the risks or the barriers to success. And we're going to talk about those a little bit in our third webinar. But if you make it okay for you to mess up, and you say to people, it's okay, like, let's just figure it out together, then you can help them feel okay with the little issues and challenges that are gonna come our way. Another thing to do is in meetings themselves, doing a low risk warm-up is a really fun way to get people engaged and using the tools without feeling like they have the pressure of needing to also focus on the meeting activity itself. And we have a great blog post about warm-ups that you can use in Mural. And then, Mark, I want you to mention the rules, kind of I was in Hawaii. I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I added that down here. So part of that is when you have this discussion about roles and rules, which is in our second part of this webinar. You can see the recording. Elmo, if you are an adult and you have kids, you probably think in terms of a Sesame Street puppet called Elmo, but Elmo actually stands for Enough, Let's Move On. So you empower everyone in the room to be able to call Elmo if during that meeting two people are having a heated engagement. There's Elmo. Hi, Elmo. Are having some engagement and the rest of the room is just sitting bored waiting for that conversation to end. Give permission to call Elmo. Enough, let's move on. And then those people know, okay, they kind of come back into themselves and realize, oh, we should take this offline. The other thing is giving permission around attention deficit. Sometimes in longer meetings, you won't be 100% focused all the time. I never was in school, even though I tried. It just happens. We've got lots of tabs open. Your boss is maybe popping up a Slack message notification or something, and someone in the meeting will say, "So, Hailey, what do you think about that?" And you like turn to the camera and you're like deer in the headlights. So at that point, it could either be a really awkward moment where you feel guilty, you weren't giving your attention, you're caught. So the least effective thing to do is kind of buffalo your way through it and pretend like you were paying attention and answer a question that actually wasn't asked. I mean, that doesn't do anyone any good. So we just, at the beginning of the meeting, say, just if you're caught or something happens or your attention was divided, just say, I'm sorry, I was in Hawaii. And suddenly that's like no harm, no foul. You go, okay, well, this is the question again, and you bring people immediately back into the conversation. And that makes them feel valued and welcome. And it's these little behavioral things that really build a foundation of psychological safety. Yeah, I'd also encourage people to check out Team Prelude. We have been working with them for a number of years, and they have a fantastic assessment that works especially with remote teams. So I won't say any more there. Go check it out for yourself. But it's a brilliant way to have something to talk about as a team other than the weather. You can actually talk about your individual strengths, and it's very conducive to building powerful teams.
And yeah, it's called Prelude. I'm gonna just zoom on there. Prelude.
Yeah.
And Mark, I appreciate you giving me psychological safety in this session, because even when like the dog was barking and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And you're like being able to say like, we're human, this happens. Like there's always a dog barking moment in any remote call. So being that person to someone on your team is so important and just really awesome.
Wonderful.
I want to make sure we get to, let me see, introducing Mural or any tool really to first-time users. So we're talking about how do we introduce people to Mural who may not be feeling comfortable using Mural. And there are also a lot of questions about features and functions and stuff in Mural. So I definitely recommend, if you have questions about Mural, we have an awesome intro demo that we run every week. And I had the link to that. Where did I put that? I'm just gonna zoom out up here. And it's, I'm sorry, mural.co, the weekly demo right here. And then we also have a Mural Help Center. That is a fantastic resource for you to walk through some videos and some other online resources to learn about Mural. So
I'm going to ask, you had that great part in your talk at Control the Room in Austin. Mm-hmm. It's like how you start with this simple thing, and that gets everyone engaged right away.
Yep.
Tell us about your tip.
Yeah, so when I'm starting to teach someone to use Mural for the first time, I only teach them two things. I only teach them how to navigate the canvas, so zooming in and out. So I can see everything here, but then I can also zoom on this content. So I make sure that they know how to do that and to adjust their zoom settings on the tab here, just so they feel comfortable and confident moving around. And then I also just teach them how to add a piece of content. So double click to add a sticky note, or of course you can also come over here to add a sticky note. And that's just gonna give them two really, really simple ways to start using Mural. And I tell them, don't worry about anything else, just that, and let them focus on the content of the meeting, because the tool is really just here to help facilitate conversations, not to get in the way. So that's what I recommend.
Yeah, that's great. And it's really good to, I know some of our fellow facilitators inside Mural, one of them had, if people are familiar with Where's Waldo, they made this fantastic game where they had one of those really dense pictures where it's just intricate drawings of thousands of cartoon characters, and in there is somewhere is Waldo in his trademark red and white striped sweater, but they dropped it into a Mural canvas and locked it down, and that forced people to do what you normally do with the book: bring it in close, look detailed, zoom back out, zoom in, and pan around. So there's all sorts of ways to gamify the experience. That can get people over some of those fundamental hurdles, especially if they're not coming from a design background. They're used to tools like Illustrator, Photoshop, Sketch, those kind of things that naturally, sometimes even sharing, sometimes we'll say, oh, it's like Google Maps or, you know, your map application. And then people get a sense of, oh, right, that type of interface, right? Because how do you compress a, you know, a 14, 20-foot long whiteboard, you know, into a screen? You need this as a necessary navigation mechanism, but it's very new for a lot of people. So.
All right, awesome. I want to go over to facilitation and meeting design. This is a big part of our third webinar that we are, where you can get the recording of that. I mentioned again just at start.mural.co/resources, where you can catch all of the good stuff that you need to facilitate and host remote meetings and lead remote teams. So lots of people asking about keeping people engaged, facilitating breakouts, preparing templates, and even hosting large, of course, from a university perspective, groups of students. So I want to make sure that we mention here, Mark and I also host a free facilitation style session twice a month called the Experience Lab, and we can put the link to that in the chat, but it's a great way for you to practice your facilitation skills and also learn a new method. We go through a lot of Luma methods in there, but also some other stuff like jobs to be done. So definitely check that out, and I'll ask Mary to put the link in the chat for that. But Mark, tell me, what are you and I love, this is how Mark and I work a lot, is like one of us will be talking and sharing and another person's capturing what's on their mind. So everything's always in one place. So Mark,
Yeah,
what
I was
is,
just
tell me what you're working on.
Oh, sure. So I was just gonna, you know, we've fallen into a pretty comfortable cadence when we have our workshops, where we really think in terms of three separate types of mural canvases that we leverage, and they're all the same. I mean, they're all a blank canvas when we start. But when we start building them out, we build them out with intention. The first one is a pre-work canvas, right? So this allows us to ask some insightful questions, maybe share some links. If people are new to the tools we're using, we can drop in links like we've done here to helpful videos to orient them. If I'm leading a facilitating workshop on a particular topic, we can put polls, we can have people kind of generate their questions beforehand. And then I share that canvas, you know, a week or more in advance. And that as two things, as a facilitator. One, I get a notification when people hop in there and answer stuff, right? So I can use that as a way to see how engaged are they, and if I need to encourage people, remind them, I have this immediate feedback of how much participation I'm getting. Then when you actually go in and ask those questions and see the responses, as a facilitator, it allows you to really start mentally preparing and tailoring all the things that you could share with this team, or all the ways in which you could construct your workshop or your meeting and really tailor it and have it be informed by these things that they're sharing with you, right? So pre-work is incredibly valuable, and it also allows you to kind of get them engaged with the technology, even maybe while you're still building out your workshop over the course of that next week or so. The presentation canvas, that's like what Hailey and I use today, right? So this is where we're very thoughtful about plugging in all of the things that we need to talk about and share, and we might need to visualize things, a particular diagram or concept or artifact that we need to share with you. So that's the presentation canvas. And then in our workshops, we use breakout rooms. We really enjoy Zoom. We know that there are other tools that are starting to add breakout rooms, but the ones in Zoom work really well. So if you're a facilitator and you're used to running these in-person co-located workshops, you know how you can have 20 people in a room and then you can break them into 5 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 5 or 10 groups of 2, right? And that's something you can do in a room. But if everyone's in the same communication channel, right, we're all hearing all 20 people talking, and you say, all right, now huddle and talk to your partner, it's chaos, right? That just doesn't work. So you need some way to get people into those individual huddles, and Zoom makes that very easy. So you can simulate that, and when you send them off in smaller groups to do that work, we give them their own breakout canvas that they can be in and work in. And the reason why we give them their own space to work in is they might want to do voting. They might want to use a timer. And the voting and the timer is all within an individual canvas. So you can have a big canvas and have, like you'd have a big whiteboard and have 4 teams at the long whiteboard working in different areas. But the challenge there is that they can't run their own individual voting session. If one team votes, it's going to vote for everyone in the room, right? So those 3 mental buckets, if you think about how to kind of design your experiences around those, that's been very successful for us in the webinars we do.
And I also added links to the definitive guide to facilitating remote workshops. I popped that link into the chat as well. It's an awesome book that Mark, Rocky, it's okay, bud, that Mark co-wrote to talk about a lot of things like team shape and preparing and things like that. So that's really helpful for you. And then also in webinar 3, once again, we have those pre-recorded where you can check out things about tools and techniques for remote meetings. All right, Mike, we have about 2 more minutes together. So what do you think?
Well, the one thing I would like to do before we leave is for those of you that are still with us, one, thank you very much for your time, your attention, your feedback. We would ask for something before you leave. If in the chat, you could give us some sense of how relevant this was or how much you enjoyed. So a number from 1 to 10, 1 being this is kind of a waste of time, 10 being this is something I found very valuable, kind of higher satisfaction. Give us a number and why. You know, what was it about the session that you found particularly valuable, or what was missing that needed to be there for you. Any feedback is a gift, and we use this. We look at it and really pay attention to this, and this is the only way that we can make sure that we continue to kind of pivot and respond and get a sense of what we need to be doing to support people in your journey towards remote work and team collaboration in general, just building better teams, having better meetings. It's something we take very, very seriously. So thank you very much for those that are sharing your feedback.
And I'll also let you guys know, tomorrow we actually have another webinar at 9 o'clock Pacific time, where you actually can see Mural employees using Mural to get their own problem solved. And so Mark and I facilitate that meeting. You can get some really awesome tips and tricks on how to facilitate your own meetings in there. And that's called Mural Backstage Pass. So I'll put that in the chat right now. And you guys can register. You can come see Mark and I in action and our goofy team working together. It's so fun. So I'll put that there. But
that's great. I just noticed one other question in there. Someone was talking about, we have a cluster around remote team management.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do a small plug for Remote Hal that has a really a course that, in all transparency, I contributed a module to this, but there are many people that contributed much smarter than me that understand remote management at a much deeper level. And so I'll just share that. There are many online resources as well, but this is one I've actually been through and I've seen the content, and I've heard back from people that have taken it that they found it to be very helpful, because that is different than kind of the supervisor, seeing everyone sitting at the desk kind of management that I did for part of my career. It's very different now, and that trust and psychological safety and transparency in everything that we just talked about the tools that really create that sense of where progress is being made, and being able to support your team. Right? People are at different levels of their ability to do certain tasks, and so the team needs to be able to adapt and support the people that are still learning. Paired mentoringship, there's all these tools at your disposal and ways to approach really building stronger teams, even with a variety of levels of seniority and talent. So.
All right, so with that, thank you so much, Mural team, Mark, for having this session today. And for those of you who stayed on with us for the extra time, we really, really appreciate it. And we're here to help you, so feel free to reach out to us either through our chat on the Mural website. Our support team they're absolute rock stars, so they can also connect us. So we'll be there. But in the meantime, please stay safe, stay healthy, and keep working and collaborating together from anywhere.
That's right. Remember to breathe at least once a day.
Yes. Oh, I'm taking a deep breath right now. I need it. Woo! Wrangling a lab while
Excellent, excellent, excellent multitasking.
But no, really, thank you guys so much for being here with us.